Hello, I'm Laura, and I'm a librarian at Mercer County Library System in our Information Technology Department. And today I'll be talking to you about Hoopla Digital, which is a part of our virtual branch. Hoopla offers eBooks, comics, movies, music, television, and audiobooks that you can borrow 24/7. You can get to the service by going to www.hoopladigital.com, or if you're on our website, you can look under branches and find our virtual branch, which lists all of our virtual services for digital content, such as our eLibrary NJ, ebook and audiobook collection, our Flipster magazine collection, and our Freegal music collection, as well as Hoopla. When you first go to the Hoopla site, or if you download the Hoopla app from the iOS store or the Apple App Store, you'll be asked to log in. In order to use Hoopla, you actually have to sign up for an account. It's a free account, and you will set up basically an email and password by clicking on the Get Started Today. On the app, it'll just prompt you to do this automatically. Basically, you want to enter in your email, confirm it, and then set up a password. The next screen, I can't do this because I already have an account. The next screen will show you where you can select your library from a drop-down. You want to pick Mercer County Library System, and then you want to enter in the barcode on the back of your card. So that should be a 14-digit number, and you don't want to enter in the spaces. You'll also be asked to enter your PIN number. Your PIN should be the last 4 digits of the phone number that you gave us as your contact phone, whether it's your home phone or your cell phone, even a work phone, whatever phone number we have on record for you. The last 4 digits should be your PIN number. If you have any difficulty with that, you can ask somebody at one of our branches what your PIN number is. Okay, after you've set up your account and you log in, you'll come to the Hoopla Digital platform. Again, I'm not going to show you the settings, but they're up here in the gear up on the right-hand side. You can do things like change the email address associated with the account, or you can change the barcode number or the PIN. That's one of the reasons I'm not going to show it to you, because I'm using my own account, so I don't want to be showing you my barcode and email address. Okay, as I mentioned, Hoopla has several different categories, and if I hover over the browse, you'll see audiobooks, movies, music, comics, ebooks, and television. During any calendar month, you can have 5 items checked out at a time. The amount of time in which these things circulate depends on the type. Audiobooks, comics, and ebooks you borrow for 3 weeks, so you get 21 days. Movies and television is a 72-hour or 3-day lending period. And music is a 1-week lend, so you would get 1 week to borrow a music CD. When you first get to Hoopla, you'll see some highlighted items that they're currently showcasing. You'll also see your currently borrowed area, and you can see I can borrow 3 more titles this month. As I noted earlier, you can have 5 items during a month. And what I've got borrowed here, just to show you some demonstrations, there was a demo ebook or audiobook that I've downloaded, so that doesn't count against my 5 items to borrow. And I downloaded an episode from a TV show as well as an ebook. So we'll see how each of these things works in a minute. There is a recommended for you section. In the settings, you can actually click on different genres, and you'll get recommendations based on that. Okay, so first, finding an item. Also, I'm sorry, under My Hoopla, it will also bring you back to some of these areas. So you can look at your currently borrowed items, which is here, as well as your favorites, so if you've marked anything as a favorite, and also your borrowing history. As I noted earlier, we have different types of material you can borrow, so I'm going to go ahead and browse audiobooks to get us started. Each one of these areas is set up exactly the same way, so the look will be familiar as we move through the types. Audiobooks will have the featured recommended, popular, and categories. By default, it goes to recommendations, but if you want to see what's featured in the system, you can see that as well. I'm going to stick with recommended just so you can see you can kind of browse through. And at any point in time, you can search as well by using the search box. Now you can search for everything, or this drop down will also let you search by the specific type of material. So if you wanted to just search audiobooks, you can see we have Janet Ivanovich in here. So if you wanted to search for audiobooks by Janet Ivanovich, you would just click in audiobooks in the drop down and then Janet Ivanovich. We're going to take a look at one of the pages, and you'll see we have a little synopsis of it. It'll tell you who the reader is. If it's part of a series, it will tell you that it's part of the series. You can rate this title and see that come up when you're looking through your history. And also this heart is what adds the item to, when we're up here under My Hoopla, your favorites. So the heart means it's been added to your favorites list. As I noted earlier, you get 21 days for an audiobook. So if I wanted to go ahead and borrow this item, it's just as easy as clicking borrow, and then you get a confirmation screen. And then once you've borrowed it, it would show up under your My Hoopla, or I mean, sorry, your currently borrowed list. I'm going to go there because I had already checked out this demo content. So I'm going to show you what an audiobook looks like. And note the icons at the top, the headphones, the movie projector, and the ebook will let you know what type of content it is. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit play. Now these are streaming items, so you're not going to be downloading this. I'm just going to hit the mute button on that for a minute so it doesn't talk over me. So basically, you're streaming these items. If you are using the Hoopla app, you will have the option to download for offline listening. So if you're traveling and you want to not be using your data, you can download while you're connected to Wi-Fi and then use it offline. But if you're using the web-based version, you'll just be streaming straight through. Down here, the player opened when I clicked play on Sebastian Faulks here. If I click this up arrow, I get the full screen, which shows me all of the options I have. I did go ahead and mute this. So I'm going to go ahead and mute that again. At the top, we have some controls where we can change the speed at which the narrator reads. You can hit snooze, so if you're going to be listening to it and you're afraid you're going to doze off, you can set the timer so that it shuts off automatically after a certain amount of time. You can also add bookmarks just by clicking on this bookmark icon here, and you'll get a confirmation that the bookmark was saved. And then if I go back to bookmarks, you'll see the bookmarks that have been added. The other thing is this timer down here, you can jump ahead, you can go back. If I hit pause and then shut this, I can come back and it will pick up right where I had left off. You can also go back 30 seconds or forward 30 seconds. You'll also see when the item will be returned. If at any point in time you have an issue using the service, if you click this problem button or tap the problem button on your device, you'll get a little quick survey, and you can send that and you will report the problem directly to the Hoopla tech support, and they will get back to you and let you know if the item has been fixed and extend your borrowing privileges for that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and minimize this. Of course, the other option is you can also close it totally. Actually, I should do that. And I will talk to you a bit about the eBooks, because they're also fairly popular. The eBooks do indeed have a slight embargo on some of them. So like the audiobooks, you may not see the most recent items in here, but there's plenty of titles to select from. And you'll see if we click on one, we see the same type of display. And I would just hit borrow to borrow that item. I'm going to go back and I'm going to show you again. We have the recommended, the featured, the popular. And one thing I didn't mention on the audiobooks is the categories. And all of the category areas look the same, where you can select different genres, or you can pick themes. So hotspot trending travel, for example, top titles, or you can just go with historical fiction, whatever it is you want to pick as the category. I mentioned earlier that you can do recommendations. When you go into the recommendations area on the settings, it looks exactly like this. And you just can click as many as you'd like to add for your recommendations in those genres or category types. Okay, again, I have already borrowed something. So currently borrowed. I borrowed the printed letter bookshop. And if I click play, what we'll see is the e-reader display will come up. There are arrows to the left and right, which you can use to flip through the book or tap if you're on a device that has a touch screen. The other thing is there's some controls at the top. The bookmark is here as well, so you can bookmark this. Much like the audiobook, if I were to close this tab that opened up, or close the book, I'm sorry. I don't want to close the tab because then I'll close Hoopla. If I use the close X and then go back into this, it will pick up right where I am without me even having to add the bookmark. If I added bookmarks, or I'm sorry, right next to the bookmark, you can see the chapter list, but you also see the bookmarks. So you have your table of contents and your bookmarks on that next tab. You can also search through the book if you'd like. Another option is the text. Alternating alternative options. So you can change the text size as you'd like. You can select a different font. Notice it has an open dyslexic font available. So if you have a child who's got dyslexia and you're trying to find books for them to read for a book report, and they need the dyslexic font, it is available on the Hoopla eBooks. You can also choose what background you'd like. You can change the justification if you need to. You can change the line height. You can change the margins, and if you're reading in one column or two columns. So this is the two-column display. If you wanted to only see one page at a time, you could change that as well. Then once you hit apply, it changes all of those. And then if you ever wanted to go back, you can go back and change like the defaults and the justification and click apply, and you'll see it'll go back. So that's how you use the ebooks. The comics have a very similar display. Comics is a little more of a catch-all. You'll see that it's got graphic novels as well as comic books. And yeah, so for example, here's comic books. There's an issue number here, or you might get a group of issues for those comics that are released on a monthly basis. And then you'll see things that are, like I said, graphic novels. And you'll see also the manga and the anime in here as well. So I didn't currently borrow any comics, so we won't be looking at how they work. It is a very similar experience to the ebook. The music works very similarly to the audiobooks, so I also did not check anything out on that. I noted that there was an embargo on the ebooks and the audiobooks. For the music, there is no embargo. As soon as an item is released, a song, an album, and it shows up on iTunes, it'll probably, or Pandora or Spotify, it'll also show up on here. So if you're looking for music, most of the stuff is going to be here. We do have another service called Freegal, which has some of the Sony artists, but most of the other stuff is going to be here. So you'll see things like Panic at the Disco, and you'll see some of their newer stuff in here as well. And again, if you go ahead and borrow it, you'll get the whole album, and you have it for a week, so you can just listen to it the same way you would listen to the audiobooks. The last two areas to look at are the movies and television. What gets a little bit confusing about this, and I should note first that the movies, there is an embargo on those as well. But you'll still see we do have a lot of feature films in there. So even though there's an embargo, there really is a large collection of even recent titles that you'll see in there. So don't be discouraged if you don't see the latest Hollywood hit in this collection. What I was going to say that's a little bit confusing about the movies and the television is as you're going through, you might see in the movies area some um, documentaries that were made for TV and made for TV movies that you'll see popping up. That's because there's just one um, episode, so to speak, for those, and not a large, such as this Creatures of the Deep. It's more of a one-time special that was on TV. The television section, by comparison, you'll see these are items that do have multiple parts to it or multiple episodes. So, for example, I'm trying to remember which one of these I borrowed something from. Okay, it's one of these Poirots. I'll just go into this. This is Agatha Christie's Poirot season 11. You'll see each episode is a separate item that you can borrow. So again, you're limited to 5 items per month. So if you wanted to watch all 4 of these episodes, those would count as 4 of the items that you would borrow for the month. The reason why they're separated this way, instead of being able to borrow an entire season and binge watch it, is because you do only have those 72 hours to watch. So the things that have a much bigger episode list than 4 would be it would be rather difficult for most people to watch 24 episodes in 2.5 to 3 days. Okay, so I do have an item borrowed from the television area. So I'm going to go ahead and watch that. Note that it took me to the season 12 listing for this. Once you've borrowed a video, it does go to that area and you can click play. So I'm going to go ahead and click play on this one. And I'm going to hit the mute. Actually, I'm not going to hit the mute. We can watch a few seconds of this. Okay, so much like a YouTube video, actually, there's a control bar at the bottom where you can control the volume. You can jump ahead or go back in the video. And there's also, you can turn subtitles on and off if you need to. And then you can select which language you would like them in. There's also a settings area so that you can change the display of the subtitles. You can choose the font and the color, etc. And lastly, you can do full screen. I'm going to go ahead and close this one out because I wanted to show you the help section at the bottom. There is a submit feedback as well, and Hoopla will help you out if you have any problems using the service. So if you click submit feedback, if you have any problems with your account or accessing the service, they're more than willing to help you out. Okay, the other thing I wanted to point out in the help section is they do have some getting started areas, but you know, we have TV and we have movies in here. So if you have an Android TV, Chromecast, if you've got the Roku player, or if you've got a Fire TV, they do have, oh, I believe they have Apple TV in here as well. But they do have instructions on how to get started using this service through those devices so you can actually watch on your television if you don't have a smart TV and have one of these devices instead. So that is pretty much our Hoopla in a nutshell. Oh, one last thing before I go. You'll see to the right of the search area is this kids link. This is kids mode, and basically it will show you everything that is PG. It'll exclude things like the romance novels, horror novels. So if you want to turn on kids mode for a child's card, it will limit you to things that are appropriate for a child. So that was the last thing I wanted to mention to you. So that is our Hoopla service in a nutshell, and we hope you enjoy using it. So happy watching, happy listening, happy reading. Good night.